Discovered, a shy librarian's amazing ACT transformed a millionaire's crying daughter on a plane. Emily had always felt like a whisper in a thunderstorm. Sitting in the cramped confines of her airplane seat, she tucked a stray hair behind her ear, adjusting her oversized glasses. As a 32-year-old librarian in Maplewood, Wisconsin, she was accustomed to feeling invisible, a comforting kind of obscurity that allowed her to lose herself among the shelves of books. But today, fate had placed her beside someone glittering with privilege, and the contrast made her skin prickle. She stole a glance at the woman next to her, adorned in a designer dress, whose tear-streaked face suggested a tempest brewing beneath a polished surface. The plane climbed higher, jolting with turbulence, a mirror of the rising storm inside Claire, the woman beside her. Emily sat frozen, her heart thundering as she sensed Claire's internal struggle with inadequacy, driven by a powerful father's relentless expectations. She vaguely recalled her own battles against self-doubt, feeling those familiar pangs rise again like smoke in her chest. What was her worth compared to a daughter raised in luxury? For Emily, every anecdote from the novels she cherished swelled with lessons about courage and authenticity. But sharing those stories required stepping outside her protective cocoon, the very thing that left her trembling. Before she could retreat into silence, the words unfurled. "You know," she began hesitantly, "I once read a book about a girl who hiked miles to discover her own voice." The moment hung, charged with fear and hope. Claire's attention shifted, her eyes narrowing as if she were trying to decode Emily's intent. A flicker of curiosity ignited in her gaze, though it quickly dimmed as she reflexively turned away, consuming the cabin landscape. The divide between them pulsed like the turbulence, threatening to split them apart. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Engagement was dangerous. In Emily's world, vulnerability was a double-edged sword. She could still feel the weight of her own pressures, the weight of her mother's unfulfilled dreams, and the constant nagging feeling that she was meant for something greater but stuck in her librarian role like a forgotten bookmark. Claire's uncertainty, however, mirrored her own, and the realization concretized in Emily's mind: what if they could understand each other? The tension escalated, with Claire's struggle visibly intensifying. Suddenly, she turned, tears flooding down her cheeks. What if I disappoint him? The words ripped from her, raw and heart-wrenching, yet Emily felt their truth resonate against her own fears. Did Emily have the right to intrude upon Claire's pain with her own shadows? Between them, the emotional landscape shifted inhospitably, a tapestry woven with unsaid words and the staggering weight of unmet expectations. As the plane stabilized, both women clung to the precipice of transformation, wrapped in their respective cages, one of luxury and one of simplicity. Each confronted the haunting question that hung like fog: what would happen when they landed? Outside, clouds gathered heavier, thrumming with expectation. Would the paths they'd chosen engulf them, or would they be granted the courage to redefine their life stories beyond someone else's script? The turbulence might have calmed, but inside, a wild storm raged on, waiting to unleash truths they both desperately needed to confront. Emily sat rigid in her seat, a tempest of thoughts swirling in her mind. Claire's tears mirrored the vulnerabilities Emily had spent years pushing down, and yet this strange intimacy birthed a flicker of resolve within her. This could be a moment, a chance to redefine not just their narratives, but her own life's direction. The rawness of Claire's pain was intoxicating, beckoning Emily to muster the courage to vocalize her own fears. "Disappointment isn't just yours to bear," Emily said softly, her voice surprisingly steady, slicing through the tension that encased them. "I've lived under expectations too sometimes. It feels like a heavy book, doesn't it? Each page filled with pressures that silence our true selves." Claire's eyes lifted to meet hers, and in that moment of vulnerability, an unspoken alliance formed. Both women were bound by their inner demons, Claire's tied to her father's demands, and Emily's anchored in an underwhelming self-image that shackled her spirit. "Do you think it's too late?" Claire's voice wavered as she searched Emily's gaze for answers. Perhaps, on some profound level, she hoped to find a kindred spirit who dared to glimpse into the uncertainty that colored their lives. "Late for what?" Emily responded, deflecting the question back, but it also served as a mirror to her insecurities. The plate of her life seemed uncut, unpenned, a blank canvas yearning for colored strokes that could paint her destiny. "Late to choose my own path," Claire replied, a hint of defiance threading through her words. "Every time I try to, I feel like I'm living in someone else's story." The truth settled between them, dense and heavy. Emily realized with startling clarity that the fear of judgment both women battled was similar, yet strikingly different. Claire, in her affluence, and Emily, in her obscurity, had both surrendered agency, retreating to the shadows of other people's expectations. Yet here they were, two women in a flight bound by the need to reclaim autonomy over their lives. Seeing Claire's struggle ignite something deep within Emily, an urgency to not fade into the background of her own narrative. What if we choose to embark on a journey of our own, out of these confines? It was both an invitation and a challenge. Sometimes, it can start with a small step, a whisper of defiance. With that, Emily began to share her dreams, fragments of herself she had locked away. Talking about her ambition to write, her desire to create worlds adorned with characters that would defy the status quo, characters who'd venture into their fears and emerge victorious. Claire's eyes widened as Emily spoke, her expression shifting from despair to fascination. "You write?" she interjected, an unexpected spark lighting her features. "Why haven't you shared this before?" Emily hesitated, then she realized this was the essence of her metamorphosis, not just to speak, but to claim and own her truths. "I've been afraid no one would care," she admitted, but as she spoke, resistance began to soften, the plane began its descent, the ground rushing closer, and a realization hit Emily with weighty certainty: their choices were vast, like the infinite rows of books in their lives. They could craft their own tales, unbound by the plots designated by others. Yet as they drew closer to the ground, a question lingered in Emily's mind: what if both of them embraced this awakening but faced insurmountable challenges upon landing? Would their realizations hold up against the crushing weight of expectation and reality? As the wheels touched down, anticipation crackled in the air like static electricity, and Emily clutched the armrest, the pulse of fear threatening to tangle with her growing determination. This was at the moment of truth approached. How would they walk away from the fragile revelations woven between them? The air thickened with suspense as they faced the uncharted territory of their futures, a horizon painted with both danger and promise, ready to uncover even deeper truths about themselves. Emily stepped into the airport terminal, the cramped space teeming with the bustle of travelers snatching at their dreams, each lost in their own world. Claire walked slightly behind her, an outstretched hand clutching her carry-on, breathing heavily as their feet hit the tile. An overwhelming doubt gnawed at Emily's resolve. What did they just commit to, really? A metaphoric leap off an existential cliff, or a genuine pursuit of personal growth? She glanced over at Claire, whose eyes danced between excitement and anxiety. The shift in their dynamic breathed new life into their surroundings. The space that once felt suffocating now held an electrifying potential, a realm where two women were ready to stop living inside someone else's plot, at least for now. Where do we even start? Claire breathed out, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. Let us not overthink it, Emily replied, her voice steadier than her heart raced. Maybe we just need to take one small step. As they emerged from the terminal into the embrace of the crisp air, Emily felt the weight of choices press against her. She was no longer just a listener, she was becoming an active participant in her narrative. The idea of taking control and spearheading her journey set off flares of anticipation within her. Their first stop was a cafe within the airport. The aroma of coffee filled the air, an intoxicating scent that sharpened their senses. As they settled into their seats, the chatter around them became a distant hum, the outside world temporarily suspended. "I want to write," Emily confessed again, this time with less hesitance, her eyes fixed on the frothy surface of her cappuccino. "But talking about it feels scary." "Why is that?" Claire leaned forward, her expression curious, eyes bright. "Saying it out loud makes it real," Emily admitted. "What if I fail? What if my stories don't resonate? What if an entire world in my head doesn't translate onto the page?" Claire nodded, her own fears palpable. "But what if they do? What if we succeed?" The question hung between them, electrifying. Emily felt her heart race, her mind opening up to the possibilities, the uncharted territory of her ambitions beckoning her forth. "What do I do next?" she asked, a new wave of determination pushing through her, connected with the unfamiliar yet compelling idea of being expressive. "Let us set some goals," said Claire, a grin breaking through the shadows on her face. "Start small. How about writing for at least 15 minutes a day?" Emily considered this, relishing the idea of discipline mixed with excitement. Slowly, smiles tugged at her lips as she began to recognize a new sense of identity forming. She no longer saw herself as merely a librarian yearning to document stories, she was an author in the making. She could challenge the narrative surrounding her, not just for herself, but for Claire as well. "Okay, 15 minutes, she agreed, an exhilarating note vibrating in her voice. "What about you? What's your first step?" Claire hesitated, a fleeting embarrassment flickering across her features. "I want to enroll in an art class," she confessed. "To paint again. It's something I loved before. Emily prompted, already curious where this revelation led. Claire shifted uncomfortably on her seat. "Before the pressure. I've pushed it aside out of fear of judgment." Emily's heart raced as she observed Claire's transformation, two women boldly confronting their inhibitions, navigating a dangerous path of self-discovery. But a pit settled in her stomach as she realized the vulnerability they were inviting. As their conversation gasped for breath, the cafe burst alive with customers, and reality pressed down once more, rooting their newfound ambitions in harsh light. The expectations of others seemed deceptively close, constant reminders that casting new paths could sow doubt. Just then, an upholstered figure staggered past, spilling coffee onto the floor. It was a reminder that they were not alone in their struggles. "What will happen when we begin?" Claire asked, her voice fragile yet laced with yearning. "The time has come to face our truths," Emily whispered, pulse quickening with anticipation. Their hearts fluttered in response, a stirring of fear and hope as they took a collective breath. Would they rise to meet the challenges? Would they dare to confront the specters of their former selves? The next step awaited, and with it, the young women stood on the threshold of profound change. What would happen when their pasts collided with their aspirations? The path ahead remained unclear, but the pull of transformation was infectious, and they were ready to leap into the fray. Emily's heart pounded as she and Claire navigated through the bustling airport towards their gate. Each step felt like a declaration, a physical manifestation of the new paths they were about to carve out. She could feel the weight of her ambitions pressing against her chest, a mix of exhilaration and trepidation coursing through her veins. The anticipation of writing, of giving life to her stories, was like standing on the edge of a diving board. She tapped her fingers against her thigh, an unconscious motion revealing her growing nerves. 15 minutes, she repeated to herself. Just 15 minutes a day. It was manageable. But the enormity of what lay beneath the surface, the expectations she alone set for herself, loomed just as large. "Are you okay?" Claire's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "Yeah. I'm just processing everything," Emily managed, forcing a smile that felt wobbly at the edges. How could she explain the storm within her? The fear of failure, of exposing her innermost thoughts to scrutiny. Claire regarded her with an understanding nod. "We can do this together, right? Support each other." "Definitely," Emily affirmed, though unease still snaked through her. The commitment to regularly write meant opening doors she had long kept barred. It wasn't just about putting words on paper, it was about exposing her vulnerabilities. As they settled near their gate, Emily pulled out her notebook from her bag, an old, slightly battered journal that had journeyed with her for years, collecting dust, ideas, and aspirations. "Let's make a pact," Claire suggested, her voice brightening with enthusiasm. "We'll each share what we write every week. No matter how rough or unpolished. Just honesty. What do you think?" The idea thrilled Emily, but a shadow of doubt resurfaced. "What if what I write is terrible?" Claire's gaze was unwavering. "But what if it's amazing? Or transformative? You'll never know unless you let it out." The challenge wrapped around Emily like a warming blanket, yet her mind remained hesitant. She stared at the blank page, a vast expanse of potential. Time slipped as an impending deadline loomed, yet she felt paralyzed at the prospect of scrawling the first words. As if sensing her struggle, Claire chimed in, "Why don't you write about us? About this trip and what it means for us?" The suggestion ignited a flicker of creativity in Emily. Each word could encapsulate the essence of their transformation, the leap they were daring to take. "Okay, I'll start," she whispered, putting the pen to paper. Doubt clawed at her, but there was a thrill in the release, a cascade of words that came pouring out. Was it fear of judgment that had silenced her before? Each letter she inked felt like a rebellion against the self-imposed limitations that had shackled her creativity. The chatter around her blurred into a hum as Emily leaned into the rhythm of writing, surrendering to the flow. With every sentence, she began to weave threads of her thoughts, her fears, and a glimmer of hope. Claire's supportive presence acted like a buoy, keeping her from drifting too far into despair. And the rush of her newfound determination, a voice cut through her concentration. "Excuse me, miss." A young girl with tear-streaked cheeks stood near their table, looking lost. She was clutching a stuffed animal too big for her to hold comfortably. "What's wrong?" Claire asked gently, her compassionate nature taking center stage. The girl sniffled, her brown eyes wide. "I lost my mommy." Emily's heart ached. Here was an innocent soul caught in the chaos of the terminal, paralleling her own internal struggles. "Do you want us to help find her?" Emily offered, her voice steadier than she felt. The girl nodded emphatically, and Emily immediately shifted her focus from her worries. In that instant, the act of helping another became a powerful reminder of their collective humanity. "Let us go, we'll find her together," Claire said, standing up decisively. As they walked alongside the girl, suddenly the pressure of her ambitions felt less daunting. Emily realized that stepping into vulnerability didn't only involve writing, it could mean being a source of support for someone else too. Resolved to blend courage and compassion, she thought about her upcoming pages, the ones that would tell her story while also capturing the encounters that came her way. However, as they turned the corner and the sound of distressed voices rose, the tension tightened around her chest once more. The journey was only just beginning, and Emily could not shake the feeling that she was on the brink of a larger test. What awaited them at the edge would demand more than just words. Would she be ready to cultivate her creativity while supporting the growth of those around her? In the swirls of uncertainty, Emily steeled herself for the next moment. The real story was about to unfold. As Emily and Claire approached the source of the distressed voices, an unsettling pit formed in Emily's stomach. The noise grew louder, intermingling with the chaotic bustle of the airport, but she focused on the girl at her side, whose grip on her stuffed animal tightened with each step. How could she not see the parallels between this lost child and her own quest for direction? They rounded the corner, revealing a scene that sent Emily's heart racing. A frantic woman, the girl's mother, was pacing with wide eyes, scanning the crowd. The woman's face, marked by worry and exhaustion, struck a chord deep within Emily. Suddenly, it was personal. The weight of expectation she felt regarding her writing and professional development shifted to a greater empathy for the mother's desperation. "Excuse me," Claire called out, raising her hand to draw the mother's attention. The woman turned, her expression morphing from confusion to relief as she spotted her daughter. Tears welled in her eyes. "Oh my God, Mia!" she exclaimed, rushing forward to wrap her arms around the little girl. Emily watched, a strange mix of satisfaction and vulnerability washing over her. This small act, this moment of resolution, resonated with Emily in ways she hadn't anticipated. The clarity of that connection fueled her realization that life, with all its unpredictability, provided narratives far richer than she could ever invent alone. As the mother knelt, sobbing apologies and expressions of love, Emily felt a surge of inspiration. Perhaps her writing could reflect not just her own struggles, but the intricate webs of connection that defined humanity. The experience rekindled the flicker of creativity that had ignited with Claire's suggestion. "It's going to be okay, Mia," the mother soothed, brushing away her daughter's tears. "I'm here now." In observing their reunion, Emily recognized that vulnerability was not just about exposing her own fears, it was also about capturing these authentic moments that left an imprint. She envisioned a montage of stories, interwoven with both her own truths and the serendipitous encounters of others. Each interaction was a part of a greater whole. "Let us find somewhere to sit down and write," Emily suggested to Claire, who smiled knowingly. They moved to an empty area, the adrenaline of the moment adjusting Emily's mental gears. Holding her notebook, she grasped the pen tightly. With each word that danced onto the page, she expressed the emotions and epiphanies that had come rushing to the surface. Words melted into thoughts about lost people finding each other and about the often hidden pain nestled beneath the surface. "Writing is about connection, right?" Emily murmured to Claire, seeking validation of this new insight. "Absolutely," Claire replied, her voice steady. "It's about being raw, being real." And just like that, Emily realized that she had gained a new understanding of her mission. Her ambition began to reframe itself not as a solitary pursuit of perfection but as a journey interlaced with the stories of others, breathing life into her work while allowing vulnerability to guide her expressions. Emily wrote furiously, each stroke of the pen illustrating an awakening, both as a writer and as an individual. Just as the sounds around them waned, she paused, the weight of emotions balancing with newfound conviction. But as she finished her thoughts, a shadow crossed her mind, a lingering doubt. The stories of others were powerful, but could she adequately portray them without losing herself in the process? Would she remain authentic while exploring narratives not entirely her own? A part of her wanted to retreat to the safety of familiar themes, to shield herself from the challenges inherent in writing the complicated tapestry of life. Yet, she considered that great art was born from discomfort, from pushing against boundaries. Claire glanced at her, catching the flicker of uncertainty. "What is going on in that head of yours?" she asked gently, sensing the conflict brewing within Emily. Emily drew in a deep breath, ready to embrace her hesitation. "What if I can't do it? What if I don't represent these stories as they deserve?" In that moment, Claire's unwavering support reminded her that the courage she had shown earlier helping a lost child could further extend to her writing. But clarity mixed uneasily with doubt, leaving Emily on the precipice of exploration, hovering between past fears and the potential of her new ambitions. The moment simmered, revealing the pressing truth: today was only the beginning, and the distance between her aspirations and reality had yet to be traversed. Yet as she looked back at her words, determination ignited within her, she felt the thrilling rush of possibility. The moment of truth, the real confrontation, lay just ahead. Would she have the courage to embrace the essence of storytelling, not just for herself, but as a reflection of the world's myriad experiences? As they prepared to board, a voice echoed through the terminal, announcing boarding for their flight. Emily's heart raced once more, this time with anticipation. She needed to know, how far could she stretch her narrative to embrace the truth of others' lives without losing her own? And so, with her notebook clutched firmly against her chest, she steeled herself for the journey ahead, ready to face the writing that lay in wait and explore the connections that would ultimately define her. The horizon shimmered with promise, and Emily understood that the most engaging stories often surfaced from the depths of uncertainty. As they settled into their seats on the flight, Emily felt the cool metal of her notebook against her thigh, a constant reminder of her uncharted path. The jet engines roared to life, vibrating through the cabin, pushing her thoughts into a kaleidoscope of possibilities. She dared to visualize herself as a vessel, a mediator between her own experiences and the collective narratives around her. But with each jolt of the plane lifting off the ground, doubts swirled around her like turbulent air. Claire, sensing the shift in Emily's demeanor, turned to her, her voice barely audible over the drone of the engines. "Remember the reunion we witnessed? What it made you feel? That's where the magic lies." Emily nodded, feeling buoyed momentarily by her friend's encouragement. Yet, the weight of expectation loomed again. The memories of lost children and frantic parents echoed in her mind, reshaping her viewpoint on what it meant to truly depict others' stories. Could she capture that raw emotional truth on the page, weaving it with sincerity? She opened her notebook, the blank pages seeming to mock her uncertainty. Focusing, she began to write, channeling the essence of real moments into words. "Every story I uncover is layered, just like every person," she jotted down, determination rekindling within her. The rhythms of the plane oscillated, but they could not disrupt the growing clarity in her thoughts. There was profound power in vulnerability, yet it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, uncertain whether the dive would lead to freedom or fear. The flight attendant made her way down the aisle, offering drinks. Emily accepted a coffee, savoring the moment as the warmth spread through her fingers. She stole a glance at Claire, who had her nose buried in a novel. It struck Emily that while Claire found escape in words crafted by another, she yearned to give the same gift of escape and insight through her own writing. But how could she possibly give something she hadn't fully embraced herself? Mid-sip, Emily's thoughts took a sharp turn as she recalled the mother's raw emotional expression earlier, a mixture of fear and relief, so beautifully tragic and human. What was it that made such vulnerable emotions resonate deeply? She questioned whether she could brave the depths of that same discomfort, transforming words into a powerful tapestry of connection and empathy. Her heartbeat echoed alongside the unfolding events in her mind, and a thought struck her like lightning: she wasn't simply a storyteller, she was a bridge. She recalled how, as a child, she had often built invisible bridges made of her imagination. Wasn't this akin to what she was attempting now? Every story was an invitation to connect, every character, a pathway into another's reality. Uncertainty snaked around her resolve again, prompting her to confront a deeper question: what if, through attempting to speak for others, she diminished their truths? It was a daunting reality that pressed against her chest. The fear of misrepresenting those stories burned brighter than her ambition. Drinking in the airport's cacophony, Emily suddenly realized that she did not need to represent every experience perfectly, but to honor them with sincerity and authenticity. She needn't epitomize the collective but rather illuminate the individual narratives that led her here. Each hesitant stroke of her pen was a step toward understanding how to navigate that tightrope of authenticity without falling into misrepresentation. A sudden shudder jolted the plane, pulling her from her thoughts. As passengers gasped during the turbulence, Emily jotted down the words, feelings in motion, contemplating how art and stories, like flights, traversed unpredictable skies. There would be turbulence in storytelling, just as in life, and perhaps, that very uncertainty would transform the journey. Claire looked up, her brow furrowed. "Hey, everything okay?" Emily met her gaze, and for the first time, the doubt lurking in her heart felt lighter. "Yeah, I think I'm just realizing that imperfection might be part of the essential truth," she replied, a flicker of understanding sparking within her. As the plane ascended into the clouds, a metaphorical leap into the unknown, Emily felt a rush of exhilaration. The journey was just beginning, and she had to confront what it meant for her to navigate this literary landscape. The complexities of truth, the diverse voices waiting to be heard, and the stories that would forge her identity as a writer stretched before her, but in the midst of her awakening, a looming shadow of apprehension remained. Would she truly have the strength to cross the boundaries of her own experiences and fully embrace the rich, textured lives of others in her quest for authenticity? With the world falling beneath her, she realized the moment of decision had arrived. Would she leap or remain tentatively on the edge? Emily tightened her grip on the notebook, heart racing, ready to embrace the rich ambiguity of writing, poised to find out how much of herself she would have to give in order to capture the fullness of someone else's story. The initial thrill of her self-discovery was soon overshadowed by a potent mix of anxiety and determination. As the plane ascended higher, Emily recognized that the air was thick with change, both around her and within herself. The conversations of passengers merged into a distant hum, like a wildfire burning quietly in the back of her mind, generating new thoughts and perspectives. At that moment, she noticed Claire's book lying open, its pages fluttering slightly with the vibrations of the plane. It struck her that stories, when shared genuinely, contain the power to evoke emotion, catalyze change, and, most importantly, create connection. It was a daunting task to capture the essence of others through her lens, but an important one. With each word she wrote, Emily realized that she was layering her own experiences with those of others, building a mosaic of humanity. Closing her eyes, she envisioned the mother from earlier, the way her entire being seemed to collapse with worry and then expand with relief. That moment was not just a fleeting experience, it was a universal touchpoint that traversed the boundaries of time and circumstance. Emily felt invigorated by the idea that through diligent observation, she could weave together stories that held individual truths while also honoring the broader human experience. With renewed restraint, she let the words flow again, allowing them to encapsulate the complexity of that intensity. Her story isn't just about fear but also about love, she wrote with fervor. Each word became a stepping stone toward a deeper understanding of her craft. There was something profoundly exhilarating about the realization that storytelling didn't require perfect representation. It simply needed to reflect emotion raw and unfiltered, but as she scribbled down ideas, a pang of self-doubt flickered back to the forefront of her consciousness. What if her portrayal of experiences and emotions was too simplistic? What if she failed to adequately honor those she intended to represent? The weight of those concerns threatened to pull her back down into hesitation, but she fought against it. She wouldn't let fear dictate her narrative. The aircraft hit a pocket of rough air, sending a wave of unease through the cabin. Emily instinctively clutched her notebook tighter. In chaos, there lies inspiration, she reminded herself. She turned her focus inward, dissecting her insecurities. Too often, she had given her own fears precedence over her passion. Emily's thoughts crystallized as she recognized that vulnerability, both in herself and in her subjects, was where the beauty of storytelling dwells. You have to dig deeper, she muttered to herself, channeling all her frustrations into her writing. Every layer matters. Shifting in her seat, she began mapping out interviews she hoped to conduct, names, and details flowing onto the pages like a waterfall of intent. This was more than storytelling. It was an act of commitment and obligation to convey with honesty and courage. As the plane continued its ascent, the lights below faded into a tapestry of abstract shapes. It felt like a metaphor for the stories she was about to bring to life, beautifully complex and blurry around the edges. She wrote, "Perspective shapes truth, and I must control my own." What if she could also challenge herself to capture her own story along with those she intended to portray? Could her narrative coexist with others without overshadowing or diminishing their experiences? The thought sent a thrill through her. She envisioned a final project that integrated her unique viewpoint, one not centered solely on others but interwoven with her discovery. Claire stirred next to her, looking more alert. Emily could see the questions lingering behind her friend's eyes. "What are you thinking about?" Claire asked, curiously. Emily hesitated. She wanted to summarize the insights she was gathering but feared they might sound trivial out loud. However, Amanda's sincere look pushed her forward. "I'm just realizing how expandable reality can be. It's complicated and beautiful the way our lives connect in unexpected ways. I think that's where my writing can soar." Claire nodded knowingly, but Emily felt a pause loom ahead, a silence filled with unspoken thoughts. The idea of intertwining her narrative with those she would write about was exhilarating yet terrifying. Would she truly pull it off, or would she stumble into misrepresentations fueled by her own perspective? A sense of urgency flared in her. The journey ahead promised trials and victories, a test of her resolve and dedication to authenticity. But how much of myself am I willing to expose? She wondered, scribbling hastily as the plane sliced through clouds. The moment of introspection was interrupted by an announcement. Something about needing to prepare for arrival. But she knew then the real challenge would begin after this flight. The conversations, the stories, the risk of transformation awaited her. As she tucked her notebook neatly into her bag, Emily steeled herself for the first interviews ahead. The truth lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to reveal itself, and she was ready to confront it. Yet, as another wave of turbulence rocked the aircraft, she couldn't shake the unsettling thought: was she equipped to embrace the revelations that would emerge? The question lingered, igniting a new flame of resolve within her. She would have no choice but to find out. Emily stepped off the plane, her heart racing as she navigated through the bustling airport. The energy of her new environment surged around her, a vivid contrast to the confined and turbulent space she had just escaped. Each unfamiliar sound, luggage wheels clattering, announcements blaring, and shoes echoing on tile, felt alive, matching the cacophony of thoughts swirling in her mind. She adjusted her backpack, the weight of her notebook a constant reminder of her commitment. The corridors ahead promised potential encounter, stories waiting to be told, but doubts nipped at the edges of her excitement. What if these interactions yielded nothing substantial? What if she stumbled, incapable of capturing the essence of the lives unfolding before her? With a long, deep breath, she steadied her composure and uncrumpled the note she had scribbled down before her flight began. Interviews were a balancing act, requiring her to connect while navigating the complex labyrinth of emotions and stories. How would she initiate that first conversation, coax out the humanity behind the facade? Emily glanced around, scanning the crowd. Vulnerability danced around her. She not only sought to draw out the sentiments of others but also to unveil her own truths. There was a piece of her story that craved light, a fragmented aspect she had long hidden even from herself. Determination ignited within her, combating the knots of anxiety. She spotted a small cafe nestled in a corner. Coffee would offer clarity, she reasoned. As she approached the counter, she noticed a young woman seated alone, her face buried in a book, her brow furrowed in concentration. Emily felt an instinctive pull. She could see fragments of herself reflected in that singular figure, lost in a world of words. "Excuse me," Emily said, her voice slightly shaky yet resolute. "What are you reading?" The woman looked up, startled, and then relaxed into a warm smile. "It's a memoir," she replied, enthusiasm lighting her eyes. "It's incredible how honest she is about her life." "Is it about struggle?" Emily asked, feeling the conversation shift. "I'm looking to capture genuine human experiences for a project." The words slipped out before she could second-guess them, igniting a spark within her. The young woman nodded. "Exactly that. It's about facing fears and embracing failures. We all have those moments that change us, don't we?" In that shared understanding, Emily felt the walls of her self-doubt begin to crumble. "More than I can say," she sighed, her heart racing as she skimmed the edges of her own narrative, ready to weave it into this budding connection. The woman introduced herself as Sarah, and as they talked, Emily found the courage to delve deeper, discovering that Sarah had faced her share of trials after a recent loss. The conversation flowed easily, unveiling layers of both their stories as they shared personal anecdotes, fears, and aspirations. "People are so much more than what you see on the surface," Sarah said. "It's in the hidden battles that we find our strength." Emily resonated with this notion, echoing the very essence she wished to capture in her project. It was a reminder that vulnerability was not a flaw but a bridge to connection, a theme that would be central to her work. Their time together was both liberating and daunting, illuminating the possibility of entwining her narrative with others. But within Emily lay an unresolved question: how much of her own story was she ready to reveal? Was she prepared to stand bare before others, risking exposure in the name of authenticity? As they parted ways, Emily felt an unfamiliar sense of empowerment. There was power in sharing. She recognized that her magic lay in the narrative interplay between personal truth and the emotions of those she encountered. As she walked toward her next destination, purpose thrummed through her veins, yet the echo of her insecurities began to hum in the background. Did she possess the fortitude to withstand the revelations? The risk of inadequacy loomed larger with every step. The challenge now lay before her, to forge an authentic path through the stories of others without losing herself in the process. With newfound energy, Emily took a deep breath and steadied her resolve. She would not shy away from the depths, instead, she would embrace the complexities and perhaps, in doing so, uncover the truth she had long sought to understand. But amid this fresh insight, an unexpected face flashed through her mind: Claire, the steadfast friend, supportive yet dismissive of her dreams. What would she think of this venture? Did she believe in Emily's ability to transcend the limits she had imposed on herself? The questions haunted her as she ventured further into the heart of this new city, daring herself to confront both the stories of others and the intricate tapestry of her own life, a journey that promised transformation. The weight of uncertainty loomed behind her like a dark shadow, yet the promise of exploration beckoned like a flickering flame. As she stepped into a small art gallery, seeking inspiration beneath its canvases, a hidden strength whispered within: the true journey had just begun. What stories lay hidden within the brushstrokes, waiting for her to unveil them? And would she find the courage to confront her own canvas and narrative waiting to be painted? The moment Emily crossed the threshold of the art gallery, she was swallowed by an atmosphere thick with creativity and whispers of history. Vibrant canvases adorned the walls, each brushstroke a silent story begging to be unveiled. The gallery felt alive, much like the bustling airport, yet it held a sense of stillness that allowed her thoughts to settle. As she wandered deeper into the space, Emily felt the weight of her laptop in her bag pressing against her, reminding her of her commitment to weave together her narrative with those she met. She approached a painting, a chaotic burst of colors mingling harmoniously. It drew her in, the chaotic lines somehow reflecting her own internal tumult. How do artists embrace the raw and the untamed within themselves? The query swirled through her mind as she recalled her conversation with Sarah. That same battle between wanting to share and fearing exposure was mirrored in those vibrant strokes. She stepped closer, examining the details. Perhaps the artist grappled with the same uncertainties she experienced. Did they ever feel inadequate? Were they ever scared that their creations could not do justice to the truth they wished to express? A sudden noise broke her reverie. A couple nearby was arguing, their voices rising like the flurry of the colors around her. She felt a pang of unease as their raw emotions manifested in the gallery, a stark contrast to the crafted beauty of the artwork. Observing this conflict evoked something deep within her. It felt almost theatrical, a moment where reality necessitated vulnerability. It compelled her to consider her own fears again, the lurking shadows of inadequacy that crept back into her thoughts. Emily shifted her focus from the lovers' quarrel, seeking solace in a quieter corner of the gallery. She settled in front of a serene landscape painting, a tranquil escape. In that moment, she was forced to confront another pressing question: what made her so afraid to portray her own journey honestly? Did she fear that her experiences might seem trivial compared to the profound struggles of others? Mustering the courage, she pulled out her laptop, the cool metal grounding her. Thoughts unfurled as she began typing, crafting a provisional outline of her narrative, a skeleton seeking flesh. With every keystroke, a sense of liberation washed over her. She described her first days in this city, the tension of hope and anxiety that intertwined within her. She wrote about her dreams and the moments of doubt, a record not merely of her journey but as a homage to the voices she aimed to capture. As she began to write from the heart, Emily discovered the power of her own stories. The more she let herself flow onto the page, the clearer her internal barriers became. It was exhilarating to reconcile her own embedded fears with the bravery exhibited by those she aimed to interview. She realized she had monumental stories within her as well, moments of fear that could mirror the struggle of others. Just then, a woman, a middle-aged art enthusiast, approached Emily. She seemed intrigued by her focused expression and brightened as she engaged her. "You're a writer?" she asked, scanning the words on the screen. Surprised, Emily nodded, a rush of embarrassment flooding her cheeks as she quickly closed her laptop. "I'm just jotting down thoughts for a project." "Don't hide it. Writing is a brave act. It's how you make sense of the world, isn't it?" The woman's encouraging demeanor ignited a spark within Emily, drawing her out of her shell. Was it that simple? "Exactly," Emily said, some conviction returning to her voice. I want to hear stories of real human experience, the kind that connects us. Then collect them fearlessly, the woman replied, her voice soft yet powerful. What do you lose in being open? The question lingered, transforming into an introspective challenge. What indeed did she stand to lose by embracing her authenticity? As their conversation continued, the woman's wisdom unearthed layers of Emily's fears and aspirations. When they finally parted ways, Emily felt the lightness in her stride. She realized it was less about perfection in her writing and more about authenticity in her connections. This dance of vulnerability was not her enemy but her ally. With a renewed sense of purpose, she made a mental note of those people she encountered, hoping to speak with them in detail soon. But as she stepped back out into the vibrant street, a new concern emerged. Could she face her fears head-on when the time came? That lingering thought gripped her as she walked away from the gallery. How would she truly conquer the doubts crowding her mind? The deeper she dug into the stories of others, the more profound her own narrative seemed to grow. What hidden pieces of her past would she need to confront the truths that might propel her forward, yet threaten to expose the rawest corners of her soul? Would she be ready when the moment came to peel back the layers and reveal what lay beneath? As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting a golden hue across the street, Emily felt the weight of her aspirations thrumming against her heart. Each interaction had reshaped her understanding of storytelling, weaving a fabric of vulnerability and connection that she was now determined to embrace fully. Her journey was not merely about gathering stories, it was a personal metamorphosis that propelled her towards unapologetic authenticity. Emily, clutching her notebook tightly, ventured towards a cozy bistro that she had spotted earlier. The serene ambience was ideal for reflecting on the myriad of experiences that had colored her recent encounters. As she settled into a corner table, ordering a warm cup of tea, she felt a surge of clarity. The pen awaited her, eager to translate the whirlwind of thoughts into tangible expression. Sipping her tea, Emily unfolded her notebook, allowing the words to flow unencumbered. The narrative began to take shape, dripping with authenticity and raw emotion. She intertwined her own story of fear, uncertainty, and longing with the poignant experiences of others, like the young girl she had helped in the airport and the comforting words shared between herself and Sarah. Each anecdote painted her evolution, presenting her not just as a passive observer but as an active participant in a wider tapestry of human experience. Invigorated by the depth she was discovering within herself, Emily wrote about the interplay of her fears and ambitions, the struggle of presenting the truths of others while remaining honest to her journey. The reflections rolled effortlessly onto the page, illustrating her belief that vulnerability was the gateway to profound connection. As she delved deeper, Emily felt the shadows of doubt flicker away. She recognized that her authenticity did not diminish the stories she collected but rather enriched them. She had the power to convey the emotions surrounding those narratives without reducing her own to mere background noise. This was her professional and personal breakthrough. Hours slipped by unnoticed as the bistro buzzed with life around her. It was not long before she was approached by the barista, a curious glance at her overflowing pages. "Are you a writer?" he asked, his enthusiasm infectious. Emily met his gaze, a newfound confidence ablaze within her. "I'm finding my voice," she replied, a smile breaking across her face. "I want to share honest stories, real experiences that connect us." The barista nodded appreciatively, extending encouragement as he moved on. In that moment, Emily understood the significance of her transformation. It wasn't just about completing a project, it was about the unwavering commitment to her craft and her voice, crafted through vulnerability and authenticity. Leaving the bistro, Emily felt lighter, each step resonating with purpose. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, she pondered what awaited her next. It was time to act. She decided to draft an outline for her first interview, reaching out to Sarah, the sparkling stranger whose honesty had inspired her. That night, when Emily finally returned home, a sense of accomplishment washed over her. She had not only accepted her identity as a writer but she had also concretely bridged her own truths with the story she wanted to reveal. The fear that once anchored her had now morphed into motivation. She had conquered the immense pressure she had felt, both self-imposed and societal, in claiming her rightful place as a storyteller. With the newfound clarity forged through her experiences, Emily felt a profound sense of liberation. She was no longer merely a whisper among the roaring voices, she had firmly established her narrative, one that would resonate with authenticity. Her journey had begun, and she was ready. You need to subscribe now to the channel to witness more transformative tales that illuminate the triumph of the human spirit. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and elevate inspiring narratives. Comment below sharing your reactions and theories about Emily's journey that captivated your heart. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who crave uplifting, emotive stories about overcoming the odds.